Hey everyone, good afternoon. This is Cheryl Morrison, your local Chicagoland real estate attorney, and today let's talk a little bit about closings and how long they take. This is a really important question and something that sellers and buyers alike are always concerned about because you are worried about, being able to move and don't want to be sitting at the closing for too long, or make your arrangements for movers at the wrong time, or if you're having carpets cleaned, or right now your home sanitized before you move in. These are things that are going to be really important so that you can make those decisions and get those plans made so that you can get squared away and start to get settled into your new home. So like a lot of things, it depends how long things will take. Sometimes closings go very, very quickly. Last week I had one that was under an hour. I think within 45 minutes they were walking out with keys and checks. And then sometimes they take an hour or two, maybe even a little bit longer. So let's talk about some reasons why the closing might be longer. So the first one is if there are any last minute issues with the home. Before you buy a house, you will be doing a final walkthrough, and that's usually right before the closing itself. Best case scenario is really like to do it right before you come, literally going to do your final walkthrough and then going right to the closing itself. And that's because you want to make sure that the sellers have time to be completely out so that you can take a good look at everything and make sure there's been no damage, that everything's been fixed that should have been fixed. And also, you just never know, like today it's raining, it's not a thunderstorm or anything, but if there was a thunderstorm, it's possible that that could cause some damage to the home. And if that damage happened while the sellers were still the owners of the property, it would be their responsibility, and you'd want to know that. If you did your walkthrough 2-3 days beforehand and the sellers had moved out and nobody's been there for 3 days, we wouldn't know. And then it would be really difficult to sort out whose responsibility that would be. And more likely than not, as the buyer, you'd have a really hard time saying that it's the seller's responsibility if you can't prove that that condition existed before the sale closing was finalized. So that's the number one thing. If anything comes up, we're not going to know about it until right before your closing, and it's going to take some time for us to sort that out. In some instances, we might sort that out by there being an additional credit at the closing, and those numbers will change the paperwork, and then all that paperwork will either need to be reapproved or at least reprinted and re-signed, and that takes some time. Which brings us to the second issue that might make your closing take a little bit longer if the numbers aren't finalized. Usually lenders take a long time to get their numbers finalized. It is the last piece that we are always waiting on. And oftentimes, and not, right now where nobody's really going to the closing table other than the buyers themselves. But oftentimes in the past, I would walk into a closing and look at numbers and they would still need to be adjusted, or the closer would tell me we're still waiting on this from the lender to get these numbers finalized. And that is absolutely something that can take some time. If their numbers aren't final and approved yet, that is something that might delay the closing as well. The last thing is just money actually getting there. So as buyers, you have your funds that you need to close the transaction, the rest of your down payment, and then you also have your loan funds that need to get there. Loan funds are almost always wired, and those wires, you would think that it'd be instantaneous, and it's actually not. Not only do you need to wait for somebody at your lender to actually physically process that wire request, but then you need to wait for that to go through and then hit the account of the title company. And that process actually can take some time. And if it's sent late in the day, it can actually be the next day before you see it. Likewise with the buyer's funds too. If that buyer is wiring money, we need to wait for that money to get there. But if a buyer is somebody who just sold their home, we might be waiting to make sure that that closing is completed, done, checks cut before we can take that proceeds check to their purchase and put that money down for their new home. And that, can take some time too. So these are all different reasons that the closing might take a little bit longer than you want it to take. At my office, we are really on top of this and connecting with people as it gets closer and closer to that closing date, trying to get those numbers finalized, making sure that we get receipts from the sellers from any repairs that they were done, so that we know that that has been done. We just need to verify it when the buyers do their final walkthrough and all of those things. It really, usually, more likely than not, our closings go pretty quickly, but we can't, fix everything. So sometimes we just need to wait it out until those pieces get worked through and those solutions are in place and the money has shown up before you can have your keys and be on your way as a homeowner of a new home. So I hope this has been helpful for you. Definitely have a conversation with your attorney about this. We can help you work through the logistics of how close to put your closings if you're doing a sell and a buy at the same time, or if you're doing just a purchase but you want to know what time it would be best for you to schedule movers to come and things like that. We can help you work through those issues and try to put the plan together in a way that will get you moved in as quickly as possible. So thank you for watching. Have a good day.